Happy Sunday to you guys. So, are you guys done with the shadow work fad? Are you guys done with the shadow work workbooks and all these tools that they give you in order for you to work on your shadow? Good. That means that I can come back and kind of do what needs to be done so that you guys can really start working on your shadows. So I am Carlise. I am with A Peace of Mind, and I am a shadow work facilitator and a shadow work guide. And, and today we're going to talk about the shadows, how we create shadows in our children. Okay. And that is something that we as parents do not think about as we are raising ourselves or trying to overcome our own shadow, trying to fight through generational trauma or childhood trauma or trauma as an adult. As we're trying to fight through those things, we just kind of forget that we're raising little people, and my little person is already bigger. You know, he's 21. He'll be 22 here in a couple of weeks, and so I'm pretty sure he already has his shadow. Not pretty sure, I know he does. And so let's talk about that. So as we are raising our children, we usually raise our children from a space and a conditioning of how we were raised, the experiences that we had as a child, the experiences that we had in the environment that we were in because of the shadows and the experiences and the traumas and the events that our parents brought with them along the ride before they even conceived us. And then as we were conceived, and we have these energetic exchanges between father and mother, there goes another portion of that shadow, there goes another portion of that conditioning and that trauma. So now these two people have created a product of their shadow from their experiences, from their trauma, from everything that makes them. So you are in the home, you're in the environment, and your parents are disciplining you, they are talking to you, they are instilling values in you according to their understanding. And sometimes these can be input and embedded in you as fears, fears of people, or, in older generations, to never express yourself, to never talk back to your elders, um, in aspects of how much you eat, what your physical attributes are. Just there's all these different things that our parents, because of their conditioning, they project onto us, they engrave into us, so that we can be this little person walking around in the earth as someone that they raised, okay, to be a certain way that seems um, more, oh, what's the word that I want to use? More acceptable by society, more susceptible by the culture, more acceptable, I'm sorry, by the family. And which, so we'll go ahead and go back to that word, which leaves them susceptible to being naive about what the world really is about. It leads them to be people pleasers. It leads them to have a false sense of identity where people can come and tell them who they are because they don't really know who they are. They're living out of this box, or living out of this the soil that their parents have cultivated for them, to condition them in the way that they seem fit. And as we do this to our children, whether if it's, we have to have a balance. And so that balance is, yes, your child should have this freedom, the freedom to express themselves, but they have to have the respect. Some of us have children who um, are more vocal, more expressive, in a assertive way, and it's our responsibility to teach them how to balance it. So, and to be a parent and not to be the friend but to allow them to express themselves. Because when they can't express themselves, either they're going to grow up with this shadow, because here we've created a shadow by shutting down their expression, shutting down their throat chakra, shutting down their confidence when they're talking about the things that concern them. And so we have children who are either they never speak up for themselves as they get older, or they go to the opposite end of the spectrum and they are just overly talkative, or they're overly aggressive about the things that they are trying to implant into the world, or the information that they're trying to convey. And why are they like that? Because in the household and with their elders or with their parents, it was not okay for them to express themselves. So they had everything bottled up. And then they get older and people either run over them, or they either run over people because they are determined that they are going to make their point um, in the world or in the conversation. So that's a way that we build shadows in our children. Another way that we build shadows in our children are our own fears. And so fears from experiences that we've had that were that were in opposition to who we were as a human, who we were as the person, the being that is able to think for ourselves, the being that is actually learning and going through life, trying to figure out who's good, who's bad, what's good, what's bad. And so we develop these fears through our experiences. And when we develop these fears, we develop them, we convey them to our children in such a way that it instills more of a fear than an awareness to them. Because what we're trying to do is make them aware of these things that could happen in the world or with people, but instead we are building a fear in them. So, for instance, myself, I have a lost my brother at 14, 13 and 14. Okay. So the fear of loss, the fear of death always gripped me. It gripped me in such a way where I didn't really, in the beginning, didn't want my son to bond with me because I was afraid of him ever um, feeling lost like I had felt. And I felt like if I didn't allow him to bond with me, then he wouldn't feel that feeling. Needless to say, it never worked. It was never even a thing that I could do, because from the time that, I was pregnant and then had him and then raising him and all that stuff, that just never happened. It was like, it was a good idea, but it was not reality. So, our bond is our bond. And so, but that fear of, you know, making sure that he, when he says certain things or when he makes certain statements, I would hurry and correct him. Don't talk like that. Don't say that. Don't think like that. Because it's that what if thing. And so that is I wanted to bring into awareness to him that, life can be short. People do die young. People, I'm not going to be here forever. And, all of these things. But for him, he does have a strong personality. And so I think he has been able to kind of shift it and stay in reality of like, Mom, that's because of your experience that you feel like that, but this is, I'm saying it in this context, not in the context of me not understanding how precious life is, so to speak. So, but those are ways that, that my shadow, my grief shadow, my loss shadow, um, that shadow just always stayed there, and it started to make me even more hover over him in the way of protecting him, feeling as if I'm protecting him. So if I know ABCDEFG, and I know you're here, there, this time, that time, and of course some of those things are natural parenting things, but there's a different aspect when you text them and they don't text back, when you are talking about their future and they say something in opposition to that, or when they're supposed to be home at a certain time, and they're not there. And for me, that was, I mean, automatic fear, automatic, just anguish started to come over me. But that was my shadow. That's a part of my shadow, a shadow that I'm working through. But I say all that to say, everything that I was saying to him and trying to talk to him about and bringing awareness to him and making sure that he's safe, always telling him, pay attention to your surroundings. I don't care. The boy is 21 years old, and I still tell him every day, pay attention to your surroundings. You know, pay attention, always making him aware so that at least as much control as he can have. And that makes me feel like I have a little bit of control because I'm telling him to be aware. So it's all these different aspects, but these are all shadows. These are all a couple of ways that we build shadows around our children, and we instill in them these fears, and we instill in them this hyper awareness of life, or hyper awareness of events that can happen, um, because of the things that we have been through. So I challenge you guys to start to work on your shadow. Work on your shadow. Shadow working is not just this is not just a fad. This is not just something that is, out there, and it's just something fun to say that you're doing because you want to be woke. This is not a woke ordeal. This is shadow working is for you to bring up those roots, for you to make peace with the things that are ailing you, for you to get rid of those things that are hindering you so that you can live your best life, so that you can live a positive life and a productive life, so that you can in turn, however, everyone has their own journey, so that you can in turn instill that in your children. But we get to these points where it's not too late, because we don't learn about this stuff until I'm 42. So we don't learn about this stuff until late in life, as we are still trying to grow up, and we're still trying to raise ourselves, and we're still trying to figure it out. We'll never have it all figured out. But when you do the work to understand why certain things trigger you, when you acknowledge why they trigger you, when you accept how they trigger you, when you understand what's going on when they trigger you, then you can take some of that power back. And the shadow is, it's light and dark. It's subconscious and conscious. These are things that are buried in our subconscious, usually because they've happened so long ago, or they were so intense that they intensely buried themselves in our subconscious, and we are just always brushing it out. We're always pushing it out, projecting it out, saying it out, acting it out. These are all, it's just a never ending thing. And so as this is happening, we lose control, and then we don't know why, we're feeling a certain way or we're acting a certain way. It's because of those shadows. All of your shadows are not bad either, but you have to learn where to put those things at, how to maneuver through them, what's serving you at this point that's not serving you at that point. Where can you use this? And a lot of those things with your shadow, a lot of those things you can get rid of. You have to figure out where to put them at, because they're no longer serving you. You have to figure out what is true and factual for you, and not just something that's been conditioned around you, that you haven't been conditioned to. So as parents, we try to raise our children and condition our children to be the little people and the adult people that we want them to be, that society is going to accept, that we deem as acceptable as parents. And that could be very hindering for your children, because you don't give them room to be their own person with balance. You don't give them room to explore and to express and to feel how they feel about a situation, or what have you. So that's a quick snippet on how us as parents build shadows around our children. So I am Carlise. I am with the Peace of Mind. You can go over to apeaceofmind.org, and you can go ahead and build up a consultation with me, and we can talk about getting your shadow under control so that it's not overshadowing you, but you are actually walking side by side with your shadow. Thank you. Namaste.